Hello, my brothers and sisters. This is such a heavy-hearted day. If you're in South Carolina, you're probably in a storm right now yourself. And then no matter where you're from, you surely know of what happened in Hunt, Texas on the 4th of July in the wee hours of the morning when flash flooding came into Camp Mystic, where 750 little girls at a Christian camp were inundated with a flash flood. And what resulted was to have 27 people who died in that area, and nine of which were children. At the time of this recording, two of those children were identified as being little girls from that camp, little Janie and Renee. But by the time you get this, I'm sure many more will have been identified as having lost their lives in this tragic flood among those 27 initially to be identified as, as having died in the flood. But then we had 27 more who were missing. And again, I pray that by the time you hear this, there will have been some children found among those 27 that were still missing from Camp Mystic, and that they will be found alive. But surely also there will be those who have been found that they had lost their lives during that tragic flood. And this kind of event, especially here at a Christian camp, when a flood has come and taken those lives, it raises so many questions and so many thoughts about God, why, right? And the God why book is the book of Job. And in the book of Job, it tells the account of what happened to Job, who probably lived around the time of Abraham. But what had happened in Job's life is that he was a man who was upright and blameless, and he feared God and shunned evil. Okay, so an upright and blameless man who feared God and shunned evil, and God himself is the one who described him that way. And so here he was living to honor God with his whole life. And as the angels presented themselves before God, and Satan came. Satan, our accuser, had been roaming back and forth throughout the earth, and God called his attention to Job because Job was one who, again, feared God. He shunned evil. He was blameless. He was upright. He brought honor and glory to God, and he loved God deeply, and God knew it. And having called attention to Job, Satan says, "Oh, have you set a hedge around him so he has no problems? That's the only reason that he shows you any love and respect. But if you let me take from him, if you remove that hedge and I'm able to get to him, as soon as he begins to suffer loss, he will curse you." All right. And so, with that, what happens is God gives permission to the enemy, and the enemy attacks Job in the most horrific ways. So Job loses all of his donkeys, all of his oxen, all of his sheep, all of his camels. But far worse than all of that was his seven children, 10 children, actually, seven sons and three daughters. So these seven sons and three daughters who were feasting at the oldest son's house, a wind came in from the desert, struck the four corners of the house, and it collapsed on them, and they all died. So, having just heard about having lost everything he had except for his children, the last news to come to him was that all of his children had died in this horrific tragedy. And it says this in the very latter part of Job chapter 1, in verses 21 and 22. It says that Job got up, he tore his robe, he shaved his head, and then he fell down and worshiped toward God. And he said this: "Naked I came from my mother's womb, and naked I will depart. The Lord gave, and the Lord has taken away. May the name of the Lord be praised." And then it says, "In all this, Job did not sin by charging God with wrongdoing." Now, this introductory chapter to the book of Job really captures the heart of so much that is ultimately fleshed out in the book of Job. Throughout the rest of the book, you see two conclusions that are definitely wrong, and I'm just going to go ahead and give them to you. One conclusion that is definitely wrong is the conclusion that the friends of Job ultimately made, and that was this: if this kind of suffering has come on you, Job, you must have sinned. That your children must have sinned, you must have sinned. There must be a reason, because this kind of tragedy would not touch a person if they were in right relationship with God. That was a completely wrong decision. And in fact, in chapter 42, verse 7, God actually rebukes one of Job's friends and the other two friends that had taken the same position. And God told them they were wrong, okay, in those conclusions. But also, Job himself actually was tempted to be in a place of saying, God, I feel like maybe you're wrong, right? And I want you to give me a chance to come and present my case before you, because it feels like I'm being unfairly treated, and what you're doing isn't right. And so that conclusion was also wrong. And by the time you get to the end of the book of Job, you have God humbling Job and bringing him back to a place where he recognizes, no, God, I can't bring an accusation against you. You have purposes far greater than mine. So with this in mind, what we want to do is encourage you to have someone read Job chapter 1, and then someone tell that story back. Everybody can help. And once you really feel like you have a grasp on that first chapter of the book of Job, then begin to share with each other, how does this relate to this terrible tragedy in Hunt, Texas, and at the Mystic Girls Camp, and how should believers respond to the parents and the family members, the loved ones of these little children? What conclusions can we draw, if any, about what's behind this, right? And where is God in all this? And where's our enemy, the devil, in all this? And where are those who are suffering in all this? And where should we be as those who are believers surrounding those who are suffering? So it's going to be such a deep discussion, and I hope a powerful one, that God's going to reveal so much truth right here in this first chapter. And you're going to begin to see, wow, why was it that even though Satan was the one who actually instigated this, that why would God allow it? And why did Job say the Lord has taken away, right? Why does he have that sense of the sovereignty of God, that it's the Lord who had taken away from him, as the Lord had given to him? So as you consider all these things, it's going to really, I think, prepare us to be in a right place, to have a right heart and a right spirit and a right perspective when it comes to horrific tragedies like what happened at the Mystic Girls Camp and throughout that area in Texas. And so we're going to invite you to go into that Discovery Bible Study now, but we're also going to encourage you that you spend some time in prayer for those families. After having done the study, would be a great time to just go in there with a right heart and a right attitude, and pray in the midst of that we won't be like Job's false comforters, that we end up doing the wrong thing and saying the wrong thing, but instead that we would have a right perspective and a right heart, and be the kind of comforters that people like these precious parents need during this time. And so as we intercede together for them and pray for them, we can do that with a right heart toward what they're going through. Well, God bless you in your Discovery Bible Study of Job chapter 1.